All right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time, we're heading back to the ancient Israelites, specifically chapter 4 of the book of Numbers.
Oh, Numbers.
Yep, from the King James Version. And of course, we'll be drawing on Matthew Henry's commentary for some extra insight.
Always helpful.
So picture this. We're about to have a big discussion on how a nomadic community functioned, especially when it comes to their sacred objects.
Their most prized possessions.
Exactly. And, it's more than just history.
Right.
It really gets you thinking about how their practices reflect their beliefs and values. And you might even be surprised by some of the parallels to how we do things today.
You hit the nail on the head. Chapter 4 is almost like an instruction manual. It lays out how they organize their community and their duties.
Oh, totally.
And a huge part of that focus is on how they treated those sacred objects.
Like, why were these objects so important? What can we learn from their practices?
Great questions. And right from the start, the Lord instructs Moses and Aaron to take a census. Of the Levites between the ages of 30 and 50.
That's specific. Not just anyone could serve in the tabernacle.
Their portable sanctuary. Exactly.
I wonder why that age range.
Well, it makes you think about the skills and qualities they valued for this kind of service.
Yeah.
I mean, they needed men who were strong.
Physically strong.
Yeah, strong enough to assemble and transport the tabernacle and everything in it. But also, they had to be mature enough to handle the responsibility.
Right, for sure.
And the reverence that came with handling these sacred objects. It's like they saw those years, between 30 and 50 as like a man's prime.
Like the sweet spot.
Yeah, time for dedicated service.
It makes you wonder what they considered the ideal balance between, like, experience and physical strength, right?
Absolutely.
How did that fit into their views on age and leadership?
Really interesting questions. And speaking of specialized roles, the chapter really dives into the Kohathites.
The Kohathites.
Yeah, one family within the Levites. They were the ones trusted with the most holy objects. Like, think about it. The Ark of the Testimony.
Wow, with the 10 Commandments.
Exactly. And the table of shewbread.
The bread, yeah.
Yeah, 12 loaves symbolizing the 12 tribes of Israel.
Right.
You got the golden lampstand, the golden altar for incense.
Oh, wow.
And all the other instruments they used in the sanctuary. It was quite a responsibility.
That's amazing. And each item had specific instructions for how to cover it and pack it.
Oh, yeah. Super detailed protocol.
Like, why all the layers?
Right. You've got fine fabrics, animal skins. It definitely seems like it goes beyond just practical protection.
So it's more than just keeping things clean.
It's like they were veiling the sacred.
Separating it from the ordinary.
Exactly. And we see this idea of veiling sacred things in other cultures and religions throughout history.
It's interesting, like, how museums today handle super fragile artifacts or dangerous material.
Right. Careful handling, specific procedures. You have to know the consequences if you don't follow the rules.
It's a big deal. And that actually reminds me of another part of the chapter that stuck with me.
Oh.
The part about the serious consequences for touching the holy objects directly.
Oh, yeah.
Only Aaron and his sons, the high priests, were allowed to handle them.
Right. The text is super clear about that. Even the Kohathites, who transported the objects,
They couldn't touch them.
nope, forbidden. The penalty was death.
Whoa.
Really highlights the power they attributed
Yeah.
to the sacred, the absolute need for ritual purity.
Wow, what were they so afraid of? What made them think touching these objects could be fatal?
Well, it suggests this deep reverence for the divine. Like, the sacred realm is powerful, potentially dangerous if you approach it the wrong way.
It's like they believed the objects had a power that could just overwhelm you.
Yeah, if you weren't prepared, ritually prepared.
It's amazing how these ancient practices give us this direct window into their beliefs,
Absolutely.
Their fear, their reverence, how meticulous they were.
It all shows how important these objects were to them, their relationship with the divine. It was central.
Absolutely. And then the chapter goes on to describe the other Levitical families and their roles.
Right. Got to be organized.
So organized. The Gershonites, they were responsible for the tabernacle's curtains, coverings, and hangings.
Right. The fabric stuff.
Yeah. And the Merarites, they handled the heavier structural components, like the boards, bars, pillars, sockets, all the big stuff.
It's incredible how they had this system for setting up and moving this portable sanctuary.
Yeah, like a well-oiled machine.
Totally. Each family had its own specific role, and they all contributed to keeping the tabernacle running smoothly.
It's like this awesome example of Teamwork and shared responsibility, right?
Absolutely. A project that big, with all its significance, everyone had to work together, play their part.
Totally. Everyone using their skills for the good of the whole community. And then, get this, the chapter tells us the exact number of men in each family.
Wait, really?
Yeah, 2,750 Kohathites, 2,630 Gershonites, and 3,200 Merarites.
Wow, that's some serious attention to detail.
Right, you don't see that every day.
It tells you something about their values.
What do you mean?
I mean, they were meticulous record keepers. This wasn't just some story to them. This was their history, their law, their way of life. They documented everything carefully.
It makes you think about the role of record keeping in their society, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just about numbers, it was about accountability, managing resources, and keeping things in order.
You got it.
It's almost like a modern census in a way,
Oh, yeah.
gathering all this data about their population, information they would have needed for planning and managing resources.
Absolutely, just like governments do today.
That's a great point. And this is where Matthew Henry's commentary comes in, adding another layer.
Okay.
He says, the service of God described in this chapter requires the best of our strength and the prime portion of our time.
Powerful words.
What do you think he means by that? It sounds like more than just, like, physical work.
Yeah, I think he's getting at the dedication and sacrifice involved.
Mm-hmm.
Serving something bigger than yourself. Remember, the Levites were dedicating their prime years to taking care of the tabernacle and all the sacred objects.
Their strength, their time.
Exactly.
Ah.
It wasn't an easy job. It demanded physical strength, sure, but also incredible attention to detail and a deep sense of responsibility, and real commitment to their faith.
So, it was a way of life, almost.
Exactly. More than just a job.
And Henry, he challenges us to think about how this applies to our own lives.
Oh, yeah.
He asks how we prioritize our time and resources and what sacrifices we're willing to make for our beliefs and values. It's a tough question.
It really is. We get so caught up in the day-to-day.
It's easy to lose sight of what matters.
It is. But this chapter, it makes you step back. It asks what's truly important. What are we putting our energy into? What are our sacred objects, so to speak?
Wow, that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. We might not be carrying around a physical tabernacle, but we all have things that are sacred to us.
Things we treasure.
Exactly. Things we handle with care and reverence. Maybe it's a family tradition or something creative we're passionate about, a cause we believe in.
Even just a set of principles that guides us.
Right. And we have to think about those metaphorical sacred objects.
What are the things we want to protect?
Yeah, the things we don't want to see disrespected or damaged. The things we feel responsible for. Like the Kohathites had all their procedures for handling the tabernacle's objects.
Right, all those specific instructions.
We might have our own ways of protecting and preserving what's important to us.
Like setting boundaries.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Or making time for a creative project. Making choices that line up with our values.
So this chapter, it's not just an ancient story. It's like a reflection on how we live now, what we prioritize, and how we show respect for the things that matter most to us.
Beautifully said. And it shows how these themes are timeless. The details might change over time, but the basic human needs, they stay the same.
Like what?
That need to connect with something larger than ourselves, finding meaning, finding purpose, creating order in a world that can feel chaotic. These are universal experiences across cultures throughout history.
It's amazing, right? This one chapter from Numbers sparked this huge conversation about faith, duty, organization, and even how we live our lives today.
Powerful stuff. And it reminds us that these ancient texts, they still have something to teach us, valuable insights for the modern world.
Yeah. And I think the key takeaway is that it's not just about the objects themselves.
It's deeper than that.
It's the care, the respect, the dedication we have for the things we value.
Right. Recognizing that even ordinary tasks, when we do them with intention and purpose, can become something more.
Almost like acts of devotion.
Absolutely.
Makes you think about your own life, huh? Like holding up a mirror to what we prioritize. What are the things we treat with that same level of care and thought?
It's a good question to ask ourselves. What do we consider sacred? What are we willing to protect, even if it means sacrifice?
Absolutely. I think this deep dive into Numbers chapter 4 has given us a lot to chew on. This ancient community, their organization, their division of labor, the reverence for the tabernacle and all its sacred objects. It's like we got a glimpse into a completely different world.
And yet, like we've been talking about, there are these connections to our lives, the need for order, sharing responsibility, dedicating ourselves to something bigger. Those themes, they resonate across time and cultures.
It's been a fascinating journey, and honestly, I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
There's so much more to uncover in Numbers, and in other historical texts, too.
So much to explore. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. What are the sacred objects in your own life? What do you handle with the utmost care and respect? What boundaries have you set up to protect what's most important to you?
Take some time to reflect on that. It might inspire you to look at your life, your work, your relationships with a renewed sense of purpose and even reverence.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the world of the ancient Israelites. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into another fascinating topic. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.